Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, and today I'm here to talk about episode 6 of HBO's Task, entitled Out Beyond Ideas of Wrongdoing and Rightdoing, There is a River. So already quite the title. It's taken from a variation of a quote by the 13th century Persian poet Rumi. The original line reads, "Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and rightdoing, there is a field. I'll meet you there." It basically means that there's a place beyond judgment, like a state where right and wrong don't matter anymore, and where connection and understanding can exist. In simple terms, it's about like finding peace and acceptance after everything's fallen apart. And I think that, really that gets to the heart of what this show is truly about. Tom, Robbie, Maeve, Sarah, and Emily, like that quote is their story. So much so that I'm surprised that this episode is the one with that title and not the finale. But that's enough about the title. Let's get into talking about this incredible episode, because this is one of those episodes that it really excited me to talk about it. And very rarely do I get that opportunity. So we open right where we left off with like this cool drone shot, swooping us back to the standoff between Robbie and Tom. And for the record, like, big fan of establishing shots using drones, just for the record. Nobody's listening who cares to hear that, but I said it anyway. We are then treated to an incredible 20-minute opening that I'm not even going to do the disservice of trying to summarize. We're just going to talk about all the major moments. So the Dark Hearts close in on Tom and Robbie's confrontation, and Perry tells the crew to fall back, but Jason ignores him and fires a shot, kicking off a firefight while insisting that he's not going to leave without the drugs. Robbie ends up with a clean shot at Tom and instead shoots the guy behind him and drags Tom to a nearby cabin for cover. And now the two men who've been circling each other all season are now forced to work together to escape this situation. During all the chaos, a number of important things happen. Inside the cabin, Tom squares off with Perry while Jason hunts Robbie out in the woods. Then you got Aaliyah. And listen, I fucking love this, man. Aaliyah is popping motherfuckers in the head from like half a mile away. And look how that seemingly random line that I've been obsessed with about her winning that marksmanship competition, look how that line comes back around. And I've said it many times, but no matter how you feel this show is paced, there's no fat on the bone here. Like, everything matters. And to that point, actually, I want to go back just briefly, and I want to apologize to the writers who aren't watching this. And I wanted to apologize about something I said in an earlier video. So after episode 3, I hopped on here and I was very dismissive of a scene in a bar between Lizzie and Grasso. And I passed it off as like a meaningless scene that we were subjected to because the show wanted to pointlessly, shoehorn in a romance. Shows and films do that a lot, so I wasn't necessarily wrong for thinking that that's what was happening there, but I was wrong, flat out. Second thing I've been wrong about in my reviews for this specific show, but me being wrong about stuff doesn't happen too often, but twice with this show, and I'm gonna fucking own it, man. That scene established Lizzie's reputation for freezing up during intense moments, and without that scene, the scene in this episode where Lizzie overcomes that struggle despite not being able to hear out of one ear, like that scene, it doesn't land the same as like a big obstacle or a big moment that Lizzie just overcame. Further, that scene established what turned out to be more than just a shoehorned romance. When we talk about that quote from the episode title about a place that exists beyond this world of right and wrong, in this episode, Grasso's actions directly resulted in Lizzie's death. Like, he shoos Jason and Perry away, helping them escape, and then they later run over Lizzie. That death and his involvement in it don't quite land the same if we haven't had all those earlier scenes showing the progression of their relationship with one another. So, yeah, man, like, I don't get things wrong like that very often, but I want to make that right because I think that this writing team deserves far more than just me waving off a scene as filler or pointless without giving it a chance or thinking about the ways in which it's impactful. And I fucked up doing that with that scene in that bar. I said something like, wait. Oh, and then that scene in the bar, I didn't care about that. I said something very dismissive. And I want to take that back because that scene was really important. And without that scene, some of these things don't work in this episode. So Apologies, writers. Moving on. Robbie throws the bag of drugs into the water, the river, literally and metaphorically. And I think also that's why that quote from the poem, again, back to that episode title, that's why I think the word field is changed to river in the episode titles to tie the quote to the show, more directly via the quarry. Grasso saves Lizzie by shooting a Dark Hearts member, but like I said, he fires the gun near her ear, which is triggering the loss of hearing in that one ear, like I mentioned. While Tom gets the upper hand over Perry in the cabin and escapes, Robbie gets the upper hand over Jason in the woods. At least that's how it seemed initially. And I loved Tom Pelphrey in this scene, man. Like, this show has done such a great job of like forming this Robbie character, right? And we know what he's been through and how all the tragedy in his life has impacted him. So when he's choking Jason in that scene and Pelphrey's eyes are bulging out of his fucking head, you can see all of that pain that Jason has put Robbie and his family through being released through Tom Pelphrey's eyeballs. Like, it was wild, man. But I loved that scene. But all, unfortunately, was not as it seemed. Robbie releases his grip, and it's revealed to the audience that Jason had stabbed him. Robbie gasps for air, and right when Jason moves in for the kill, Tom, having recently defeated Perry and having escaped the cabin, arrives and fires a shot, causing Jason to run off into the woods. But we're not done with tragedy here, folks. Sorry. Earlier in the chaos, Grasso, while wearing his mole costume, instructed one of the Dark Hearts members to just not fuck with Lizzie. Like, if you see her, leave her alone. Well, that same guy crosses paths with Lizzie, and despite it being a dumb idea and against Grasso's wishes, he raises a gun to Lizzie, who does not freeze this time, and she puts him down. And that moment of like achievement, her overcoming that issue, is her final great act. Jason and Perry, having escaped, made it back to their truck. They pass Lizzie on the... They don't pass Lizzie on the bridge. They pass through Lizzie on the bridge, completely obliterating her. And again, thanks to Grasso, she couldn't hear them coming or hear him warning her. It's gut-wrenching. Grasso holds her. She dies, completely broken and responsible for her death in multiple ways, by making wrong decisions, like helping Perry and Jason escape, and by making well-intentioned ones, like shooting that Dark Hearts member, but deafening her in the process. Unfortunately, Robbie doesn't fare any better. Tom gets him out and tries to get him to a hospital, but Robbie dies at Tom's arms. Flashes of his family, sunlight through the trees, peace and regret at the same time. Tom's face says it all. It's a devastating death for the show. And that, folks, is the first 20 minutes of this episode. That's when we finally see the title card hit the screen after about 20 minutes. And what an absolutely insane, maniacal opening. 10 out of 10. Absolutely loved it. After the dust settles, Tom updates Grasso and Aaliyah. So Kathleen's out of surgery and okay. He mentions that Lizzie's ex is coming to collect her belongings, which again, brief moment, but that had to be pretty brutal for Grasso to hear. And that line, again, doesn't land as brutally without the prior scenes of Lizzie and Grasso discussing her ex, which are all kind of like born out of that first scene that I shit on in episode 3. The task force is officially shut down, and all three are told to expect exit interviews over Lizzie's death, and then their weapons are confiscated, and Aaliyah is furious about all of this. Back home, Sarah tells Tom that she and her husband are divorcing, and at the office, Aaliyah's packing up her stuff, again, pissed off, and there's a patch that says bullseye underneath all of her stuff that she lingers on. And I just want to restate my complete and total satisfaction with how the marksmanship thing came back around. Like, again, shout out to the writers, man. Grasso, meanwhile, he meets with a guy named Mike. Mike tells him that the FBI questioned him about Grasso and that they want to talk to Grasso and his union reps on Wednesday. He also tells him to forget about Lizzie, which is just some cold-blooded shit to say to somebody. Let's talk about Mike for a minute. We briefly met Mike in episode 4 because his full name and title is Chief Michael Dorsey, the chief deputy of the Delaware County Sheriff's Office. At the end of the episode, Tom's telling Aaliyah how Grasso is the mole, and we see Aaliyah, she's like looking through like a report filed about Grasso. And we see that, quote, no evidence was found against Grasso. And who do you think signed off on this complete clearing of Grasso on this investigation / report? None other than Chief Michael Dorsey. So that's why no charges were ever filed against Grasso. The chief's helping him and is in on it. Tom visits Maeve to tell her that Robbie is gone and that Jason did it. She answers every question that Tom asks, honestly, letting him know about, Robbie's Canada plan and how she hid Sam from him earlier and why, because she was scared. Tom defends her to his boss, played by the still fine as fuck and director of this episode and several others, Sally Richardson Whitfield. Respectfully, if by some chance she happens to watch this and thinks that was disrespectful of me to compliment her fine ass appearance at her age. Like, that woman has remained drop dead gorgeous for over 30 years, like since Posse. But like, again, I digress. I'm gonna leave it alone. Unless she sees this, then I can bring it back up. But Tom visits Sam, and initially, and I think intentionally so, I believed he was about to finally visit Ethan in prison. But Tom isn't a fan of leaving Sam to a shitty parentless life in what I'm in this kid's home or whatever. So he decides that he's going to bring Sam home with him. Puts Sam in Ethan's room and says that Ethan won't care that Sam's in his bed. And that shit made me feel sad just hearing it. So I can't imagine how Tom must have felt saying it. But he later visits Kathleen, and this scene, in concert with the scene between Grasso and Chief Dorsey, allowed me to kind of like free myself of my suspicion that Kathleen may still be corrupt. She finally clears up the mystery from episode 4. After Tom told her there was a mole, she said that she had the task force looked into. That's what we can now assume was the "we may have a problem" phone call. She found out that Grasso has been suspected before of tipping off Darkheart members, but nothing was ever proven. And again, that is thanks to Dorsey. He signed off on that. He was also likely instrumental in Grasso even ending up on the task force in the first place, which would explain how someone with that sort of past ended up in that role. Tom then confronts Grasso, pressing him on why Cliff ended up at a different location than the one that he was supposed to be at. And Grasso's basically like, are you asking me if I'm involved or are you accusing me? And Tom says that he does in fact believe that Grasso helped the Dark Hearts. And Grasso then delivers a line that I absolutely loved. He says, this isn't a quote, but he says basically like, there's what you believe and what you can prove, and there's a million miles in between. And I thought that was a pretty badass thing to say, like to poetically talk shit. Like, I thought that was pretty cool. As Tom leaves, he says, "I'm coming for you," and Grasso smirks and says, "Then come." Pause. Perfect setup for the finale. The episode ends with Perry, who has been trying to find the drugs that he believes Robbie tossed into the water, finding the drugs. He finds what he believes are the drugs. Once Jason opens the bag, it's full of Robbie's magazines and pamphlets and whatnot about Canada. And this is cut with Shelley arriving on Maeve's doorstep to give her the actual bag that Jason and Perry are looking for, as well as Aaliyah reviewing the report about Grasso, like I said, with the whole Dorsey signing off on it. However, instead of Shelley delivering a bag of drugs, it's a bag of money. And that lets us know that Robbie never intended on bringing the drugs to the meetup. In fact, and again, another great callback, he must have taken Shelley up on that offer to move the drugs for him. And now that money has been delivered to Maeve. Like, it's brilliant. Like, everything mattered. Everything came together, and we still have another episode left. But that's episode 6. Top to bottom, phenomenal. The writing is tight, emotional, packed with callbacks. Now we're headed to the finale with still a lot to be determined. So, for example, Jason and Perry are still in play. Whoever Shelley sold the drugs to could possibly help them find Shelley and or Maeve. It's probably that guy that Ray mentioned originally selling the drugs to. I think it's Lee something, I think his name was. But that's probably the guy that she sold the drugs to. We better hope it wasn't Freddie. Tom and Aaliyah are locked in on Grasso, but Tom also has to deal with Ethan's sentencing, which we know has to happen in the final episode, and the impact of not just that, but now having Sam in his house. How's that going to impact his family? What's going to happen with Maeve and all that money? Are there, and there are still questions kind of like swirling around this Mike guy. Like, he's got to be taken down, right? So, still a lot, even though it feels like everything wrapped up, there's still a lot to cover in episode 7, but let me know what you thought in the comments. Was that the best 20-minute opening ever? Like, do you think Tom's going to take Grasso down? Is there another twist coming? Let me know what you thought in the comments. So, like the channel, subscribe, share to your social media, join the Discord, join the conversation, and until next week and the finale, peace.